And welcome to this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Today on the broadcast, she was threatened with a lawsuit and a big fine for talking about Jesus in public. Find out what happened when she stood up for her faith. But first, we go to the CBN newsroom for the latest updates on today's news.
Thanks, Ephraim. The Senate held a hearing today on what some pro-lifers call the most radical pro-abortion bill ever considered by Congress. As Paul Strand reports from Capitol Hill, bill sponsors say they're trying to undo a rash of state laws meant to restrict abortion. But opponents warn it's a serious attack on states' rights and makes the so-called right to an abortion almost sacred.
The Senate is now considering a bill that many pro-life groups warn would gut almost every meaningful restriction on abortion.
The bill being advanced today would literally overturn hundreds of pro-life, pro-women laws across the country. We're talking laws to end sex selection abortion, third trimester abortions, abortion on babies that are more than 5 months old and capable of feeling pain. This is an extreme bill.
Why would Democrat lawmakers push such a bill in a country that polls suggest is becoming increasingly pro-life?
Well, it might be that they're looking to the November 2014 elections and the fact that they might well lose control of the Senate. So they could see this as a last do-or-die chance to pass any serious liberal legislation.
And co-sponsors of this bill say it's needed to counteract what they label underhanded laws, supposedly meant to protect women's health, but actually aimed at curbing abortions. In just the last 3 years,
states across this country have enacted a total of 205 provisions that restrict women's access to safe abortion services.
These obstacles have put many women in desperate circumstances, some of which may very well endanger their lives. We need laws that put women's health and safety first, not politics.
200 of these underhanded laws have been passed, and it is not right that women should have to go to court year after year after year to get the medical services that the Constitution guarantees them.
But some testifying at this hearing said the bill is actually an unconstitutional attack on the states.
Essentially, this law guts states' rights with respect to abortion. It creates abortion as a special protected class of procedure and abortion providers as a special protected class of providers.
And Representative Marsha Blackburn warned Democrats they're risking the wrath of voters by appearing so enamored of abortion rights.
Many of your constituents perceive that this body is out of touch with the consensus opinion in this country. Public opinion polls show time and again that the American people support limits on abortion.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
Carol Tobias was at that Senate hearing today, and she is with the National Right to Life. Carol, you actually got to testify at the hearing today. What did you tell senators?
I laid out for the Senate Judiciary Committee what the problems with this bill is. They call it the Women's Health Protection Act, but a more accurate name would be Abortion Without Limits Until Birth Act, because that's really what it would do. So I laid out the different problems with this bill and all the laws that it would actually wipe out that have been enacted by state legislative elected officials in the state legislatures.
So abortion without limits until birth? Can you elaborate on that for me?
This bill would set up a process whereby any law that is specifically targeted toward abortion would be invalid. If it didn't mention abortion, but it imposed any kind of limit or restriction that would reduce access to abortion, it would be invalid. And they have it laid out so that even the abortionist would get to determine what, in his best medical judgment, is, some of the provisions that would not be allowed. So this bill would wipe out conscience clauses allowing medical professionals to refuse to participate in the abortion process. It would wipe out right to know and informed consent provisions so that women would not have to be given information about the abortion process and alternatives that are available, along with the risks that would accompany the procedure. It would wipe out bans on abortions after viability. 10 states have passed a law, the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, saying that once the unborn child can feel pain about 20 weeks after fertilization, the abortion would not be allowed. This bill would wipe all of that out, and it would basically be the abortion industry self-regulating itself.
What are the chances of this thing passing?
We don't know if it would pass in the Senate, but we actually challenged the Judiciary Committee. Senator Blumenthal is sponsor of this bill. He chaired the committee hearing, and we challenged him to actually bring this bill to the floor for a vote.
Well, how can viewers make their voices heard on this issue?
Well, they can certainly contact their senators and encourage a vote on this bill, letting them know that they oppose. It's S-1696, the so-called Women's Health Protection Act. But they could do that through our website, nrlc.org. We have a mechanism where they can send a little note to their senators, letting them know that they oppose the bill, but that they would like to have it voted on. And just telling friends and family what this bill would do. It's the most radical abortion bill that has ever been introduced into Congress.
Carol Tobias with the National Right to Life. Thanks for your time, Carol. Overseas now, Israel accepted a ceasefire proposal today, hoping to end the escalating violence in the Middle East. As CBN's Chris Mitchell reports, Hamas had a different response, and it's uncertain what happens next.
Hamas continued its rocket fire after it rejected the Egyptian ceasefire proposal. After 6 hours of attacks, Israel renewed its airstrikes against the terror group. A former high-ranking Israeli official told CBN News the ceasefire proposal backs Hamas into a corner. If they reject this very public offer, then Israel will be able to renew its military operation with the backing of the international community.
Now, if Hamas rejects the Egyptian proposal, if Hamas continues to shoot rockets at Israeli cities, we are prepared to continue the military operation and to intensify it as need be to protect our people.
Diplomatically, it also pits Hamas against other players in the region, like Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the U.S. On the military front, according to an Israeli official, Hamas sustained a significant blow and failed in almost all of its objectives, in large part due to the effectiveness of the Iron Dome anti-missile system.
Every time they are launching a rocket at the State of Israel, they are meeting a brick wall called the Iron Dome.
Yet without a military victory, Hamas seeks to win on another battlefield.
Hamas views journalism as war.
Dan Gordon is a Hollywood screenwriter. He spoke with CBN News as a civilian before being called into the reserves. He says Hamas may have lost on the battlefield, but does much better on the world stage.
The other part, however, of their campaign is world opinion, and it's really quite insidious. It's to engage in active terror while claiming the mantle of victimhood. The object of that is to turn world opinion so that even though they're losing militarily, world opinion will say, we really have to stop the Israelis from committing these horrible acts of barbarism against the peace-loving Hamas. And in that, unfortunately, segments of the media actually unwittingly act as enablers.
Now Hamas will have to deal in the diplomatic arena, and with a peace offer on the table, it would put more political pressure on Hamas to accept the proposal. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
One of the highest level whistleblowers from the National Security Agency says it is moving toward watching everyone. The London Guardian reports that William Binney told a conference in London, quote, "The ultimate goal of the NSA is total population control." Binney says the NSA is recording about 80% of calls, and many employees say they are disgusted by what the agency is doing. Former Taliban prisoner Sergeant Bo Bergdahl has returned to work in the military. The Army announced Bergdahl has been assigned to a desk job on the same base in Texas where he has been recuperating from his 5 years of Taliban captivity. The Pentagon says it has concluded he did not engage in any criminal misconduct while he was a prisoner, but the military is still investigating if he deserted his post. The Church of England has voted to allow women to become bishops, ending one of its longest and most divisive disputes. The Church's National Assembly approved the historic step. The Archbishop of Canterbury says the change marks the completion of a process that started more than 2 decades ago with the ordination of women as priests. An atheist is set to deliver the invocation in the New York town that won a U.S. Supreme Court battle for the right to begin meetings in prayer. The town of Greece, New York, argued people of any faith were welcome to give the invocation. Atheist Dan Courtney says he asked to do it right after the court's decision. The ruling declared the town's prayers were in line with national traditions as long as they did not belittle non-Christians or try to convert them. Coming up, the unbelievable story of one county commissioner who stood up for her faith in Jesus Christ.
A school district in California is standing by its decision to ban any reference to God or Jesus in a high school graduation speech. Brooks Hamby thanked Jesus in his salutatorian speech last month, even though school administrators had taken out references to Jesus and the Christian faith in 3 previous versions of his speech. Todd Starnes of Fox News reports attorneys for the Brawley Union School District are defending its right to censor graduation speeches and ban any speech that refers to God or Jesus. The letter says, quote, "It is well established in the Ninth Circuit and California that a public school salutatorian has no constitutional right to lead a prayer or include sectarian or proselytizing content in his or her graduation speech." Well, she was willing to go to jail for praying in the name of Jesus as a public official. And now, where did this happen? Iran? North Korea? Not at all. Right here in the United States. John Jessup brings us her important story.
Robin Frazier, a 2-term county official in Maryland, isn't shy about her Christian faith. It's what almost landed this granddaughter of a Methodist minister on the wrong side of the law earlier this year.
Thinking of what Jesus did for me on the cross, I would not say his name because I might go to jail. I don't think so. I mean, I just couldn't do that.
Robin Frazier calls Carroll County home. It's a place she grew up. Similarly, she's no stranger to politics. She's worked for the local county and the state of Maryland. But it was her second stint as a county commissioner that got her caught up in controversy.
A prayer showdown in Carroll County.
Public prayer takes center stage in Carroll County.
Praying or preaching? That's the subject of a federal lawsuit that has called into question prayers offered by Carroll County commissioners at their board meeting.
Frazier made waves when she defied a federal judge's order that banned commissioners from opening their meetings with prayers to Jesus, which they had done since being sworn in.
I think that that is an infringement on my First Amendment rights of free speech and free religion, and I think it's a wrong ruling. But out of respect for my colleagues, I'm not sure how strongly they feel about it. I'm willing to go to jail over it.
She made that statement and recited a prayer some attribute to George Washington the day after the ban came down, which just so happened to be her turn to lead in prayer.
I didn't want to be directly defiant to the judge. I prayed about how I could draw a line. The more I thought about it, the more it made me angry that we would be told not only that we couldn't pray to who we wanted to, but that we couldn't use certain words.
Frazier says ultimately it was an easy stand to make, even though she and the commission were in the middle of a lawsuit with a possibility of tens of thousands of dollars in fines. The challenge came from a group of residents who said the prayers were divisive. But Frazier says that was never the intent. She contends the commission wanted to be respectful of others, but remain true to their convictions.
The idea of inviting people to pray with us, we said we wouldn't do that. It would just be the board. So, yeah, we kind of looked at the law and tried to be within it, but still asked for wisdom and guidance as we conducted our business.
Still, the plaintiffs say they felt the prayer policy was coercive and insulting.
I reached a point, as others have, where you just get tired of going to the meetings and being an excluded class of individuals.
The case is still pending, but Frazier's hopeful she's on the winning side after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of legislative prayers earlier this year. She believes her case, and others like it, point to a decline in religious liberties.
I guess that's what motivates me to stand up for the Lord, is because we will not be America if we push God out. All of these things are to try and limit religion.
While she's received plenty of support for taking a stand for Judeo-Christian values, she's also faced a lot of backlash, with some even suggesting this was all a stunt to sway voters for their support.
That was the furthest thing from my mind, just like every other issue. I even tried hard not to politicize it, which is one of the reasons I'm having this interview now and not before the election, because I didn't even want to give the impression that I was trying to do that, because this wasn't about that at all.
And for those who know her best, like longtime friend and lawyer Bob Lennon, they say Robin Fraser is as genuine as they come.
She's an amazing person. As I say, she doesn't have an ego. She's just a genuinely good person, and she's exactly what a public servant should be. She's there to serve and help people.
In June's Maryland primaries, Fraser lost her re-election bid to a fellow Republican. She concedes possibly in part because of the battle over prayer. Unfazed, she says she wouldn't change a thing and is proud of her political record and the stand she made for her Christian faith.
It was much, much bigger than me, and it made me know that I was in the right place at the right time to be used of God, and maybe that was the full purpose I was in here this 4 years.
John Jessup, CBN News, Westminster, Maryland.
Up next, he lost his home and his family when he was just 13, but he never lost his faith. How this man survived life on the streets to become an evangelist to the nations. Tariku Fufa was just 13 when his father kicked him out of the house for becoming a Christian. He was forced to live on the streets of Ethiopia. But Tariku never gave up hope that God had a plan for his life. Since then, the evangelist has taken the gospel message from Ethiopia to Zimbabwe, and his goal is to send African missionaries around the world. Our Gary Lane sat down with Tariku to hear his amazing story of love, forgiveness, and purpose.
When you were young, you were introduced to Christ. How did that happen?
I was searching for love. At age 13, my older brother, he shared Christ with me. And when he told me about Christ's love, that Jesus loves people, just that time, moment when I gave my life to Christ, and then for the first time, I knew someone who can love me. And then my dad said, Tariku, I give you choice between Jesus and your family. And then he said, choose. And then I said, Dad, I choose Jesus. When I said this, my dad beat me up. My stepmom also, she beat me up. My siblings, they cheered him, saying, Dad, do it, kill him. And then that moment, he even cut my face with his teeth. He shed my blood. And if you watch closely, there are even scars still on my body. That night, he threw me on the street. So from that day, for the next 6 years, I lived on my own most of the years on the street, and life was very hard. And then Lord said after that, I will heal you from this asthma. One day, as I was working in the kitchen, I got suffocated. And I thought that day I was going to die. And then as I was crying, God, I heard the silent and quiet voice of the Lord flowing down into my heart. It's not audible sound, but I could hear it inside. And God said to me, Tariku, my son, don't cry. You are not without help. He said, I will take you to university, and then you will get your degree, and then you put down your degree and move on to share my gospel all over the world in the language that you have never spoken. And then Lord said after that, I will heal you from this asthma. After 6 years of separation, one day my dad showed up at my high school, and then my dad, the first question he asked me was, he said, is this a real Tariku or is this a ghost? And then I reminded him, I said, Dad, you remember 6 years ago when you kicked me out of your home, you said your Jesus never cared for you, you abandoned me, you rejected me, you left me 2 days. But Jesus became my dad. Jesus became my mom. Jesus became my sister, my brother. Jesus became everything I needed in life. When I said that, my dad, he shed his tears, and then he said, son, would you please forgive me? And then I forgave him. He hugged me, he kissed me, and then he said, son, I love you. And that was the sweetest moment as well in my life. And then after that, he invited me back home. Then I went back home, and then when my half-brothers and sisters, when they saw me alive, that day they also gave their life to Christ. And then in my hometown, Jesus was named after my name. People said, Jesus of Tariku. And they could really see who really Jesus is in my life. From there, Campus Crusade sent me to Uganda to do my staff training there. And then I came back and started ministry in Ethiopia 11 years ago with 6 students. And then 8 years later, when I was asked now to move to Zimbabwe with my wife, those 6 students multiplied and grown into 7,300. And then staff in Zimbabwe, they pray every year. It was amazing for me to see people praying for 40 days. In 2012 alone, 398 churches have been planted in Zimbabwe.
What should we pray? Not only for Ethiopia and Zimbabwe, but other parts of Africa. What do you recommend?
Yeah, I will say just pray for a spiritual revival. We need God power moving extraordinarily and then supernaturally. And then we've got a lot of challenge. Islam is coming to Africa and is there. When investors come, they also come with their mosque. So pray that all our Muslim brothers and sisters, that they know Christ. Pray that Jesus Christ will be the focus of African people. Pray also for Africa churches and pastors, leaders to come together and then say, this is our time. Let's get up and then send missionaries all over. I hear a lot people saying this is Africa's time, but I really want to see Africa want to begin to send missionaries into other parts of the world. United States, Europe have sent missionaries to Africa, but now we believe it's now Africa's time to send missionaries to all over. So we have a vision of raising over 100,000 African missionaries to go all over, and so pray for that.
Okay, we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
CBN's Orphans Promise is helping needy Roma families through the SEED program in Ukraine. This season, 14 villages from the Transcarpathian region are participating. 30 hectares of land are used for raising crop and animals to help 236 needy families. Even children pitch in to help with planting crops and collecting eggs. While the crisis continues in eastern Ukraine, life goes on as normal in western Transcarpathia, with expectations of the largest harvest ever this year. Well, that is going to do it now for CBN News Today. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. Tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you join us right here again next time. Make it a terrific Tuesday.